In a time far removed from ours, where kings ruled vast empires and the fate of nations hung delicately on every decision, a story of courage, faith, and divine providence unfolded. This is the story of Esther, a young woman who rose from obscurity to become a hero for her people. It's a story that has inspired generations and continues to teach us the profound power of courage and faith. So settle in as we recount this remarkable story that took place in ancient Persia, a land of grandeur, intrigue, and danger. Esther's story begins with King Xerxes, a ruler of the Persian Empire, seated on a magnificent throne adorned with gold and gems. The kingdom stretched far and wide, and its grandeur was rivaled only by the king's appetite for power. During a lavish banquet, where the air was thick with the aroma of exotic foods and echoes of laughter filled the expansive hall, the king summoned his queen, Vashti, to showcase her beauty to his guests. However, Vashti, valuing her dignity, refused to come. This act of defiance shook the king and his advisors. With a mixture of anger and embarrassment, she was cast out and stripped of her royal title. This left a vacant spot beside the king, a role that required not just beauty, but loyalty and wisdom. To fill this, the king issued a decree throughout the kingdom, seeking young, beautiful women to compete for the crown. Thus, Esther, a young Jewish girl, enters our story. Residing in Susa, the bustling capital, Esther lived quietly under the care of her cousin Mordecai, who had raised her like his own daughter after she was orphaned. Esther was beautiful, yes, but there was more to her, an inner grace and strength that distinguished her from others. When she was brought into the palace along with many other young women, she won the favor of Haggai, the official in charge of the women's quarters. Under his guidance, Esther was provided with the finest beauty treatments and special care. Over time, her charm and humility won the heart of King Xerxes, and she was crowned Queen of Persia. But as per Mordecai's advice, Esther kept her Jewish identity a secret. Meanwhile, a crisis was brewing outside the grandeur of the palace. Haman, a high-ranking official in the king's court, was rising to power. Haman was ambitious and deeply proud. When Mordecai, a devout Jew, refused to bow to him, Haman's pride turned to fury. He devised a plan not just to destroy Mordecai, but to annihilate all the Jews throughout the Persian Empire. Using his influence, he convinced King Xerxes to issue a decree of extermination. The king, unaware of Esther's Jewish heritage, agreed, and the decree was set into motion. It was sealed with the king's signet ring, a symbol of irrevocable authority. When Mordecai heard of this decree, he tore his clothes, put on sackcloth, and wailed in the streets of Susa. His cries reached Esther inside the palace. Though isolated from the outside world, Esther soon learned of the plight of her people. Mordecai sent a messenger to plead with her, urging her to go before the king and beg for mercy on behalf of the Jews. But there was a problem. Persian law prohibited anyone, even the queen, from approaching the king without being summoned. Such an act was punishable by death unless the king extended his golden scepter as a sign of acceptance. It was a moment of intense internal struggle for Esther. Should she risk her life for her people? Was this her divine purpose or a moment to remain silent for her own safety? It was then that Mordecai uttered words that would solidify Esther's resolve. Who knows? Perhaps you have come to your royal position for such a time as this. Gathering courage, Esther made a decision. She called for a 3-day fast for all Jews in Susa, a time of prayer and intercession. She herself fasted and prayed, seeking God's guidance and strength. At the end of the fast, she adorned herself in royal attire and courageously entered the king's court, her heart racing with every step. The king, immediately charmed by her presence, extended his golden scepter. Relieved but not yet victorious, Esther invited the king and Haman to a banquet she prepared. The first banquet passed without Esther revealing her request, but she invited them to a second banquet. At this second gathering, a pivotal moment arrived. With great courage, Esther revealed her Jewish heritage and exposed Haman's wicked plot against her people. She pleaded for the king to spare her and her people's lives. King Xerxes, stunned and enraged, ordered Haman to be executed on the very gallows he had prepared for Mordecai. The decree against the Jews, however, could not be revoked, but the king issued another decree allowing the Jews to defend themselves against their enemies. And defend themselves they did. The enemies of the Jews were defeated, and the Jewish people were saved. Esther's courage did not go unnoticed. To this day, her story is celebrated during the Jewish festival of Purim, a testament to her bravery, wisdom, and faith. Through her, we see how God can use even the most unlikely individuals to accomplish his divine plan. She teaches us the profound truth that courage, rooted in faith, can change the course of history. The story of Esther challenges us to ask, are we willing to step out in faith for the sake of others? Are we ready to embrace God's purposes for our lives, even if they require great risk? Like Esther, we all may face moments where we must decide whether to remain silent or bravely speak up and act. Who knows? Perhaps you are where you are for such a time as this.